Girlfriends in Spider-Man media have been a staple for the character throughout his entire time in the comics, games, movies, and the shows. Being the girlfriend of Spider-Man has not only been shown as a hardship, if it wasn't obvious, but also has been a massive part of what makes the character of Spider-Man, Spider-Man in the first place. If that makes any sense. In terms of the romantical relationships that Peter finds himself in, the most talked about one is probably the relationship he has with Gwen Stacy in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. And rightly so. I don't think there is any doubt in anyone's minds that these pair are the best on-screen Spider-Man couple that we've had thus far. That's like one universal thing that every Spider-Man fan agrees on, but I just know that one of y'all will disagree in the comments. One thing that the TASM movies have proven is that nailing a great relationship in terms of the writing is a crucial part for a great Spider-Man story. This has also been apparent throughout the run of the Amazing Spider-Man comics from the 60s until present day. I mean, just look at how mad people are that they're not handling Peter and MJ well in the modern comics. Like, damn, people go in on those comics. However, while we're on the topic of Spider-Man comics, one love story that gets overlooked, and in my opinion is one of the best handled romantical subplots of any superhero comic I've ever read, is Nick Spencer's The Amazing Spider-Man from 2018. Yeah, that's right. A recent Spider-Man comic did something good. I know, it's a miracle. Specifically, in this video, I want to target and look into the heist storyline that ran from issues 9 to 11 of Spencer's run on the character. The storyline consisted of a group of master thieves who set out to steal a piece of all the hero's tech or weapon, like Cap's shield, Thor's hammer, Iron Man's armor, and in Spider-Man's case, it was his web shooters. Either way, this was the premise of the overall physical conflict for the issues. However, this story would merely serve as a backdrop for the grander story, which was about Spider-Man and his relationships. This is where it starts to get interesting, because the key to defeating these thieves is in fact the character of Felicia Hardy, who is revealed to once upon a time be a part of their little cult that they had. This ropes her into the story. This is the first time we get to see Felicia Hardy since their meeting in Slot's run, where they didn't exactly end on the best terms. Bearing in mind that this run's main objective is setting up Peter to get back with Mary Jane Watson, so bringing Black Cat into the fold introduces a new dynamic to the story. Let me guess, there's some cliche love triangle thing. No! You'd be wrong. In fact, what this comic does so brilliantly is that it doesn't rely on some kind of love triangle or some kind of love mishap between Mary Jane, Black Cat, and Peter to drive its main romantical subplot. The main theme of these three issues is about exploring the sacrifice and what it means to date Spider-Man and the consequences that come with it. And it's oddly brilliant in the way that it manages to add a very solid layer of depth to three of Spider-Man's partners over the years. This comic's storyline includes every major girlfriend Spider-Man has had over the last 20 years, including Mary Jane, Carlie Cooper, and Felicia Hardy, and does a good job of making the story revolve around the sacrifice they've all made to be with Peter. In this video, I'm going to explore all of these characters in depth and what they mean to the story. So let's first start with who I consider to be the main character of this arc, Mary Jane Watson. Although the book is titled Amazing Spider-Man, Mary Jane really is the main character of this arc, and I really like that. I love having a few issues that take the time to really explore MJ's character, because I think sometimes she gets overlooked as someone that Peter just has to save from time to time, and I think through meta-commentary, this is what this storyline is actually about. Spencer calls this out. Through his writing, Mary Jane is becoming a character that has to acknowledge the fact that sometimes she basically is just the character that needs saving. But this comic's purpose is to expand upon this and expand upon her character and basically just say, nah, that's not what she is. What Spencer does is explore the emotional turmoil as to the relationship that MJ has to uphold with Spider-Man. MJ meets with Carlie Cooper, who we'll talk more about soon, and essentially she's told to go to an anonymous meeting of partners of superheroes, essentially a place where people who are dating superheroes can open up about their feelings without putting the identity of their superhero counterpart at risk of being exposed. And I think this is such a clever idea. It allows Mary Jane to freely expose her emotions about the way in which her relationship with Peter is. Tying into the idea that Mary Jane is coming out and talking about the relationship that she's had with Peter over all of these years is also another idea which I love. which is that Spencer is not afraid to reflect on what came before. Exclusively, Nick Spencer references major events in MJ's life, a lot of them in reference to her rocky relationship with Peter Parker, almost acknowledging the up and down nature of the constant back and forth that the Marvel editorial mandates them to go through. Like I said, this comic is almost a meta-commentary on Peter and MJ throughout the years, and how they have been mistreated by Marvel editorial. This comic looks to call this out and give rhyme and reason as to why their relationship is so rocky. Moreover, I love that this build-up of emotion within MJ causes her to question whether Peter would be better off with someone else who was more like him. And although it's never outrightly said, it is hinted towards that this person would be Felicia Hardy. She questions that the reason that they break up all the time might be because she's a burden and it's just another person to save. However, in the end, she is reassured that Peter loves her because of the person that she is, which further enforces that Peter fell in love with this character that was so strongly developed through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. MJ also comes to terms with the fact that she doesn't need to be any more than she is for anyone else, including Spider-Man. She may not have special powers, superhero, or any kind of abilities, but she doesn't need to, because being Mary Jane is just fine, and Peter loves her, and Mary Jane learns to love herself for that as well. I love this. I can't tell you how much I love this. Not only does it ground Spider-Man in a way in which I think up until this point hadn't been done for a very long time, but it also reaffirms what we all love about Mary Jane Watson. She understands the sacrifices that are made to be Spider-Man's girlfriend, and I think their relationship comes off stronger because of this. It also reaffirms that MJ and Peter, no matter what, belong together despite their circumstances. And Spencer executes this brilliantly. One thing that does bug me though about the recent comics, however, is that it completely undoes all of this development. Like, it just completely gets rid of it. While these comics set out to basically say, hey, MJ's a perfect character the way that she is, and she doesn't need to have anything else to be special, even though Spider-Man is Spider-Man, the recent comics have given MJ superpowers, which completely negates all of this work done, because that takes away from what this story was about. And while Mary Jane having superpowers sounds cool, it also completely damages her character. As Spencer's run makes it clear, Mary Jane is perfect the way she is, and her character doesn't need superpowers to be a great character. Moving on, let's talk about Carlie Cooper. Despite being in the comic for one scene, she is another character that gets a significant place in this story. Carlie's relationship with Peter was another one that was severely affected by Spider-Man during Dan Slott's run on the character before Superior Spider-Man and the relaunch in 2014. During one conversation with MJ, Carlie asks her how she's getting on with dating Peter again, and how she's dealing with him being Spider-Man. I think this is more of a send-off to the Carlie Cooper character. Carlie being a representation of what can go wrong if the sacrifices interfere with the relationship you have with Peter Parker. Carlie tells MJ about the burden that she had to carry around with her knowing Peter's identity, which propels MJ to open up about her feelings and the sacrifices she had to make. Carlie's character ultimately is a representation of what could go wrong if you bottle up all that emotion, providing a short and sweet cameo, but a very, very needed one. And I think it's perfect for this kind of story. Now let's move on to the other big presence in this story. That's right, Felicia Hardy. Felicia in this comic is great. If MJ represents the struggles of a regular person dating Spider-Man and the sacrifices that come with that, Felicia represents the opposite end of the coin. Just because Felicia is considered to be someone that can defend herself from superpowered danger, it doesn't make it any less complicated when it comes to dating Peter Parker. It is first revealed that the reason as to her distaste towards Peter is because of the previous storyline, which tackled the idea of Peter and Spider-Man becoming two separate entities. I won't stay on this point for much longer, but just for context, while Peter was with MJ, his Spider-Man half, which had been split from him, went to consult with Black Cat. And obviously, since we follow Peter through the comics, we don't know what his Spider-Man counter half has been up to. So obviously, when Peter and Spider-Man become one again, all the damage that came with what Spider-Man did is still there in Peter's life, which led to Black Cat basically being really angry with him because he came up to her and was like, yeah, we should get back together, and basically just led her on again. You know, I'd be annoyed too, you know what I mean? This leads to a ferocious interaction, which leaves Spider-Man with a scratch across his face. After their first catch-up, where Peter tries to explain himself, Black Cat helps him gather all the heroes' tech back, as she is the main instigating and driving force for the physical conflict of the story. However, something feels off between Felicia and Peter throughout the panels, and you can't quite place your finger on what it is until the last few pages of the book. in which Felicia reveals the reason as to why she feels so disconnected from Peter. And the reason being is that because of the events of One More Day and Mephisto reversing the effects of the identity reveal from Civil War, Black Cat can't actually remember who Spider-Man is, and it's been eating her up this whole time. She reveals that she's been seeing someone, but for clarity, she'd like to know who Spider-Man is, as she loved him once upon a time, and she feels like it's not fair that that massive part of her life was ripped away so easily. Thus, we end on a nice moment where Peter reveals his secret identity to Black Cat, which ends up paralleling the idea of MJ and Carlie being potentially emotionally overwhelmed by the fact that they knew he was Spider-Man. In Felicia's case, it was eating her up because she didn't know who he was. And yet again, it was someone else that had to burden the sacrifice because they knew Peter Parker. The story comes full circle with this reveal, as they share a nice moment together, reliving the sacrifices that came with dating each other. This is such a nice moment for both characters. Once again, Spencer relies on previous stories by other writers on the series to bounce his story and elevate it forward. And somehow it manages to create a positive spin on the situation the character was left in after One More Day. And I love that. But moreover, this story perfectly encapsulates the sacrifice of dating Spider-Man and what it means to be the partner of Peter Parker and the emotional trauma, consequence, and resilience needed to be able to handle the relationship. I also think this story could be a great way to symbolize how anyone knowing Peter Parker or Spider-Man could also be put in this situation. Even though the girlfriends of Spider-Man are generally the most closest people to the character, Peter's friends, family, Aunt May, anyone else who has been put in this sort of situation also has to deal with some sort of burden or some sort of sacrifice to allow Peter Parker and Spider-Man to coexist. And I think this comic is a great modern telling of this classic story. At the end of the day, the story provides with great reason as to why Mary Jane, Carlie Cooper, and Felicia Hardy are all great characters in their own right, with or without Spider-Man alongside them. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to like on it, and also make sure to subscribe if you are new around here to not miss any more Spider-Man content in the future. We're going to be making so many more videos on the comics in the coming weeks. I know you guys really love these videos. We've got one coming up about Spider-Girl. We've got one coming up about Nick Spencer's run as a whole. And we've got a bunch of other comics, obviously in the modern comics as well, as they are still happening. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care and peace.